Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, quite a few different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of Belgian style beers, and they do those beers very, very well in my opinion. In recent times, though, the brewery has been diversifying what they do a little bit, which has been quite exciting to see. And the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I haven't tried from them before. It's one of their latest releases, and it's also part of a kind of series of beers that they seem to have started up recently as well. So I think this is quite an interesting one to look at because this brewery probably is going to go in a slightly different direction going forward, and you'll learn why during the brewery history section. But yeah, needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up to Kyoto, which is a little bit to the kind of north of me here in Osaka, and we're going to go to the wonderful Kyoto Brewing Company once again. So this particular beer is called Irotoridori. I should point out as well that it is the Motueka Oak Cream IPA edition. There are a few different editions of Irotoridori. It comes in at 7% ABV, and as the name tells you, this one is an oak cream or New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this is the first IPA that I think I've tried or will have tried from Kyoto Brewing Company. These guys, of course, really made their name by doing lots of saisons and stuff like this, different Belgian style beers. But yeah, there has been a change in direction of the company recently, and they're doing a few more things like this and a wider variety of styles, which is going to be very interesting to see. So yeah, it's another beer that I picked up at the wonderful liquor shop Asahiya in Taishibashi Yamaichi here in Osaka. A lovely little beer shop run by Koji, but mainly his daughter Rika these days, because Koji's getting a little bit older. They've always got a great selection of Japanese stuff, so make sure you check out the link to their Facebook page in the video description below, and you'll see all the different beers that these guys are getting in. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. The Irotoridori oak cream, Motueka Oak Cream Edition, a 7% oak cream New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Kyoto Brewing Company in Kyoto here in Japan. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Kyoto Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beer from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to very regularly, of course, because I'm based in Hong Kong. We get a good selection of Japanese beer there, and I'm also over here in Osaka visiting my son quite regularly as well. But yeah, check out the playlist of beers from other countries too, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on and chat a little bit about Kyoto Brewing Company once again then, because these guys are a very well respected brewery in Japan these days. So Kyoto Brewing Company was founded back in 2015. The three men behind this company were Chris Hing from the US, Paul Speed also from the US, and then Ben Falk from Wales. And they apparently met in Aomori when they were colleagues as English teachers in the JET programme. So Chris is the original brewmaster, and he had homebrewed during his time at university, which apparently replaced snowboarding as his main hobby. Paul, on the other hand, was studying for an MBA in Japan, and he and Chris brought Ben, a long-term friend, on board with their idea, and they started drawing up the plans for the company and sought investors. But prior to starting the company, Chris studied on a distance brewing course from the American Brewers Guild, which resulted in an apprenticeship at the Lost Abbey Brewery in San Diego in California, and he spent half a year there as well working at Shiga Kogen Beer, one of the very good breweries in Japan, I will add. And then he also spent some time at Ushitora Brewery, who were being helped by Luc Lafontaine, formerly of Dieu de Seal in Quebec in Canada. But he helped them set up their brewery along with Kaori Oshita from Mino Beer. So they started off with a 15 US barrel brew kit, about 1750 litres. Per brew, and they very quickly had to increase their fermentation capacity because their beers went down very, very well. But the brewery itself can be found in the Minami ward, just to the southwest of the city centre, and the building started off life as a lumber yard and then later served as a print facility and finally as a pharmaceutical manufacturer before it was turned into a brewery. They've got a tap room on site, and if you go there, it's in the kind of bottom corner of the building. Then you go upstairs and you can drink the beer. This opens on Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays, and in 2023 they produced around 250,000 litres of beer for the whole year. In May of that year though, Chris Heng, the original brewmaster, he announced that he would leave the company at the end of the year. He was kind of citing burnout and things like that, but he was replaced by James Fox, who has worked previously for Stone, Ballast Point and also for Cape May Brewing in New Jersey. In the US, they're a very good brewery as well. Actually, I went to visit them during the summer. But as of October 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 310 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But basically, this brewery really made a name for themselves with their Belgian styles of beer in the early days, and that's obviously the influence of Lost Abbey on Chris Heng, and of course Chica Kogan have done quite a few things like that as well. So they did a lot of kind of Belgian style beers, but the new brewer of course is coming from the US too, and he's worked at quite a few very good IPA breweries in the States, which is probably why you're getting things like this now. So it's going to be interesting times ahead for Kyoto Brewing Company. I hope they do keep up the kind of Belgian stuff that they've been doing before, but also do some more experimental things, and continue to play around with other styles too. It's always very exciting to see breweries try different things and do very well at it. So I've got high hopes for this beer, let's just say that. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Kyoto Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So let's go on and have a little look at the beer. I should give a special shout out in this video as well to my good friend Nevitt Reagan over at Japanese Craft Beer Reviews. Really lovely guy. He and I actually went to the brewery together, and that's when I filmed my out and about video there, and that was really fun to do with Neva. Actually, a really nice guy, and he's been in Japan quite a long time and knows this brewery very well actually. So if you see some Kyoto Brewing beer reviews from him, they're probably worth checking out a bit more than mine are, because he really knows the brewery very well. So I'll put the link to his channel in the video description for you below too. But let's go on to the beer itself. Like I said, so as I said earlier, 7% New England hazy oak cream, whatever you want to call it, IPA, hopped with Motueka, and 8% New Zealand, 8% alpha acid New Zealand hop. This one, it usually gives you quite a lot of juicy limey character, but yeah, apparently they've added a little bit of was it citric acid, they said. I do have the translation of the description here. Where is it? And it says, yeah, they added a little bit of lactic acid into this one. That's what I was looking for. So they've added a little bit of lactic acid into this one just to make it lean more toward that kind of citrusy end of the spectrum. But yeah, New England Hazy Oak Cream IPA, this one. This beer is part of a series. There's been a few different versions of Irotoridori, which have been, there's been a tart lime IPA, there was another one, and then there's this one. So I think there's been 3 so far at the time of filming, which is October 2024, and there'll probably be more in the future. But Irotoridori just translates as like a variety of colour, because you can say toridori as well, which is kind of like colourful. So yeah, I thought it was something to do with a colourful bird, because tori is bird in Japanese as well, or chicken to be precise. So yeah, interesting. But there we go. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. I'm really very curious about this one, as I've said many a time now, but let's crack on and do it. If memory serves me correctly, I think this beer cost me about 900 Japanese yen, so that's maybe about £4.50, €5, $5.50 American, something like that for those of you watching. in different places. But yeah, you can see this one has poured pretty much as you would expect from a hazy IPA. So before the head disappears, you can see that this one's poured with about a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. Maybe it's perfect white, it's maybe just the light being a little bit yellow, but that is of course fading away to be a kind of thinner, more foamy layer. There's a nice kind of thicker ring around the edge of the glass there. But yeah, overall it looks really, really quite nice. Yeah, in terms of the colour, I would describe this one as being a more kind of bright yellow mango juice colour. I always like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what their appearance reminds me of. But yeah, the haze in this one isn't bad actually. It's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New Englands that I've come across, especially when we consider the fact that it's an oat cream, because usually they are more soupy and gloopy. But yeah, the level of haze in these beers usually depends on the oat content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. The colour of the beer overall really depends on the type of malts that you use. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. The length of your wort boil is going to play a role, and any barrel aging or adjuncts you put into the beer too will affect that. But normally with IPAs, it's the type of malts that usually determine that. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. One or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, and a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But overall, it does look very, very nice, this one, and I think it's great. So yeah, all in all, appearance wise, with regard to what you would expect from a New England hazy IPA, nothing particularly surprising, to be honest with you. It looks great. So let's leave it at that and go on and have a little look at the aroma of this one. As I've said many a time, very, very curious about this beer. Oh yeah, right. You can smell the lactic acid in this one right away. Yeah, it just has that little bit of it just has that little bit of kind of sharpness to it in the top of the nose, and it's probably going to be both the lime that you get from the Motueka and the addition of the lactic acid. So it has this little bit of sharpness to it that you sometimes get from, say, a sour IPA. So I'm quite curious to see what this one's going to be like. Obviously you've had the likes of Vertere and who's the other one? Vertere and, to an extent, West Coast Brewing have been doing a few sour IPAs in recent times. So I wonder if this beer is going to kind of remind me of some of those Vertere ones that I've had. Maybe it's not a kind of conventional New England hazy, this one. But it certainly smells quite interesting. As I've often said, when it comes to hazy IPAs, there's a few different factors to think about with these beers. You've got the kind of yeasty, farmhousey type character and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those are a bit more common in the New England brewed New England IPAs because originally this style really started as like a kind of farmhouse IPA, and it evolved from there. But since the style's kind of moved away and it's been brewed in other places, there's a bit more focus on the wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, the barley malt bread, and also the kind of sweeter side of things coming out of these. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really quite interesting, because it does have a little bit of that more kind of farmhousey, yeasty type character to it. There's a little bit of graininess in there, but of course you've got the lactic acid just giving you that little bit of sharpness out of it. But yeah, if you take the aroma in a bit more deeply, you can get all the different subtleties out of this one. So for me, the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely little bit of like a wholemeal kind of brown bready bread crust in there. You've got a little bit of woodiness as well, so wholemeal brown bready bread crust, a little bit of woodiness in there. You have some Jacob's cream cracker on top of that, some wholemeal brown bread, some fluffy white bread on top of that, and then you have the wholemeal brown bread's in there, the fluffy white bread, and it has, within those bready characters, it just smells a little bit kind of grainy, to be honest with you. You can get a little bit of wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose for sure, but you can also smell some smoother aspects of it further forward. The oat cream is interesting. I've always found the oat cream is a little bit drier than regular oats in beers. You always get a little bit more dryness out of the oat cream. side of things, in honesty. So yeah, the oats in this one, you can get a degree of creaminess to them and a little bit of sweetness. I've always found that oat cream is just that little bit sweeter. But you've got a wee bit of dryness in there, wee bit of creaminess as well, like I said. And then, yeah, on the lactic acid is kind of sitting in the middle of the nose on top of that as well. There's maybe a tiny little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch, but really not like too much, if that makes sense. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is pretty damn nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, all in all, it's pretty interesting. The yeasty side of the beer, as I say, at the back of the nose, you're getting a little bit of this sort of like farmhousey yeasty character, which I think is quite interesting. So there's a wee bit of that going on, a bit of a kind of farmhousey, crackery sort of thing. But yeah, a little bit of brown bread in there too, I would say. So yeah, I don't know if there's much else to say about the malty and yeasty side of the beer, to be honest, in this one. So let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. We'll do the green component first. As I often say in my IPA reviews, there are 3 types of hoppings to think about when you're brewing an IPA. You have early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you a lot of bitterness and mainly a kind of deep, dank green component to your beers. And you've got late addition hopping, which comes within the last half hour of the wort boil. Usually it gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component there as well. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That's all about flavour and aroma, and again, it gives you a very kind of bright green component. So yeah, when it comes to New England hazy IPAs, they tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're softer and more kind of juicy in a sense. West Coast IPAs use all 3, and of course the early addition hopping kind of dominates a little bit and gives you a more kind of deep, dank bitterness, I would say. So yeah, the way that this one goes together in that regard is quite interesting too, because it does have a little touch of dankness to it, I think, but it's also very kind of bright and very sort of floral in a sense too. So yeah, the green component for me with this one, there's a little tiny touch of earthiness in there, but you've got some really nice grassy character coming out of this one. So lovely kind of, you've got the grassiness at the front of the nose there, and it's quite wet, I would say, and quite zesty, but yeah, you've got a bit of floral aromaticity behind that, but it's quite wet and quite leafy in a sense. So yeah, that's really, really nice. Yeah, the green component of this one, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, it's got a little bit of earthiness to it, some nice kind of floral notes, as I said, and a good little bit of grassy zestiness in there. It really is very, very nice. So yeah, the fruity side of this one, I think it's kind of pretty much what you would expect of Motueka. Motueka is all about the juicy lime. So for me, you do get a little bit of a kind of, there's maybe a tiny little touch of like apricot or something like that underneath, and maybe a little bit of melon or something almost. But yeah, the lactic acid gives it that real citricy sharpness in there, but you can smell the big juicy limey notes just underneath it. And yeah, I do really like how all of that pieces together in this one. So gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like how that goes together. It's an interesting aroma, this one. I've not had a hazy IPA like this one for a long time. It does come across a little bit more like a sour IPA in the aroma, I have to say. So yeah, as I always say though, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Irotoridori, a 7% New England hazy oat cream, whatever you want to call it, IPA with Motueka and a bit of lactic acid in it from Kyoto Brewing Company in the Minami ward of Kyoto here in Japan. Let's have a taste of this and see what it's all about. Slange, skål, cheers, kanpai. Ooh. That's pretty nice actually. Very, very light, very, very drinkable beer, this one. It actually reminds me of one that I had from Young Master in Hong Kong quite recently, which was a hazy cold IPA. It was a collaboration with Track from England, if I remember rightly. The way that this beer comes across is really quite similar to that. As I've often said, with Japanese craft beers, you will very often get like very light mouth feels, because you know in Japan they value, when it comes to beer, they want drinkability, and you do get quite a little bit of that in this particular beer. So again, it gets a thumbs up from me in that particular regard. This one's really, really interesting there. Yeah. So, for me, this one it really is interesting, because you get that little bit of the acidity that you get in the actual flavour is nowhere near as kind of dominant in the flavour as you would expect. So yeah, there's a bit, yeah, this beer kind of, the aroma and the flavour kind of diverge a wee bit in my mind. But yeah, it does come across as quite a bit more grainy and things into the aftertaste as well. So yeah, really interesting stuff, I have to say. But yeah, that is really, really nice, this one. So again, it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so the where do we start with this one? We'll go to the middle third of the palate, as we always do. So the backbone of this beer is that kind of fresh white brown bready bread crust. It's like a wholemeal brown bread. As we go further forward into in that middle third of the palate, you get a little bit more of a kind of woody type character coming out of the beer, and again, I think that's really, really nice in this one. And then above that, you get a little bit of a more, you do get quite a little bit of a crackery note to this beer as well, and that becomes more kind of prominent the further into the aftertaste that you go with this beer too. So yeah, I certainly do like that with this beer, I have to say. On top of that, you get a little bit of a more kind of grainy wholemeal brown bready character. Then above that, you've got a more kind of fluffy white bready note, and then you've got a more dense white bready character above that. So yeah, the more dense white bready character, I think, is the kind of wheaty side of things. So yeah, further back on that middle third of the palate, you've got more of a wheaty bitiness, but yeah, further forward, it's sort of a little bit smoother, I would say. So yeah, it's, yeah, the bready side of this one is really quite interesting. But yes, I've often said sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. For me, the on top of that white bready note, you'll see there is that the creamy oat side of things. So down the middle line of your palate, like, you have this more kind of creamy side of the oats. But yeah, as you go out toward the edges of the palate, it's definitely sort of drier. I would definitely say that it is that little bit drier, for sure. This beer doesn't really have, like, in the dead centre of your palate, you get a tiny, tiny little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy type thing, and that is of course the alcohol of the beer. But there's that little bit of biscuity type character comes out of it as well. So yeah, the way that this one goes together is really nice in that regard. It is definitely a bit more kind of grainy and things, but I would say the lactic acid note you get on this one kind of sits in the middle of the palate too. It comes in the impact, then it dissipates a little bit, and then your aftertaste is more about the kind of grainy and crackery characters from the bread crust and things. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really, really nice in this one. So yeah, the way that goes together really is very, very nice. Yeah, I think we can leave the middle third of the palate now and go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you've got that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, and then the kind of wheaty bitey character in there. But then yeah, the base of that back third of your palate's a lovely kind of wholemeal brown bready bread crust again. You've got the cracker above that, then you've got the wholemeal brown bready layer, which is a little bit taller, lighter, more airy, but still drier. Same can be said of the white bready layer from the barley malt above that. Then you've got the more dense, wheaty white bready layer sitting on top of that as well, which, like I say, is very, very nice. So let's have a little look. Yeah, let's have a little look at the yeasty side of things, which sits on top of that. So yeah, the yeasty side of things for me, you've got that really nice little bit of at its core, you've got that nice little bit of more kind of grainy wholemeal brown bread. As you move out from that, it gets a little bit more kind of brown bread crusty, and you can feel just a little bit of an almost like dry crackery note around the edge of it. One thing I should point out too is that in that border region between middle and back third of your palate, that's where you get the kind of lactic acidy sort of sharpness, that citricy sharpness coming out of this beer, which is really interesting as well. So again, that gets a big thumbs up from me. I really do like how that pieces together in this one. Yeah, interesting stuff, that's for sure. But definitely, yeah, back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that wee bit more. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the malty and yeasty side of the beer. As I say, it gets more grainy into the aftertaste too. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. Then as you move further forward, it's a little bit more kind of herbal, I would say, a little touch woody. But yeah, as you come further forward from that, it really gets quite floral and aromatic quite quickly. But then yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, it's quite nice and quite grassy, I would say. So yeah, you've got a really nice kind of grassy zestiness coming out of this beer as well. So I like that about this one. So yeah, for me, you've got that lovely floral aromaticity, some nice grassiness in there. The grassiness is quite zesty, and I think the lactic acid in this one is really kind of bringing that out a wee bit more. But yeah, you've got this lovely leafy and slightly spicy floral note coming out of it too. So yeah, I do like that about this beer. So yeah, on the front third of your palate then, you've got that nice little bit of bready build up between the front third and middle third of your palate. You've got the brown bread in the middle, the white bread on top, and then the more dense wheaty white bread above that. But yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, it's a little bit more, yeah, I would say the base of that front third of your palate's got a little bit more kind of brown bready bread crust again, and the cracker's quite prominent there. You do get the kind of grainy side of the brown bread too, and there's a little bit of white bread both from the barley malt and the wheat, but not overly much in honesty. But then yeah, you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at the fruity side of things with this beer then. So yeah, fruity side of the beer for me, it's got this lovely, you do get a little bit of that citricy note in the citricy note seems to sit within the border regions between the thirds of your palate in this beer, which is interesting. So yeah, get that sharper kind of lemony citricy note further back. But yeah, as you move further forward from that, it is just juicy lime all the way. I really don't think there's too much else to say about the fruity side of this beer. Maybe a tiny little bit of pear and apricot underneath, but yeah, really it is just, it's all about the lime. this one, in all honesty. Yeah, I don't know if we can really say much more about the flavour of this one. Yeah, the lingering flavours into the aftertaste are the kind of brown bready bread crust, the kind of crackery notes, and the and the sort of kind of limey and lemony citrusy kind of notes coming out of it. So yeah, a really quite quirky beer, this one. It does remind me of that cold IPA that I had from Young Master and Track in Hong Kong. So yeah, let's round off the review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. For me, this beer is it's mid-bodied, kind of leaning toward the lighter end of mid-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth, and this one's got that very light, clean mouthfeel to it, as you often expect from Japanese craft beer. The malt base has a bit of dryness underneath, the smoothness in the middle, and the kind of creamy sweetness on top. And then yeah, you've got the the kind of juice. You've got the juicy fruity character in there, but you've got that kind of citricy lime character on the impact, and then the yeasty side of things. The yeasty side of things with this one kind of lingers there too. It's quite a dry and kind of grainy leaning beer overall, but with that limey citricy note sitting on top of it. I think that's probably the good way to describe it. IBU wise, I think this is a standard 25 or 30 IBU beer, but yeah, all in all, pretty interesting, I have to say. So it's a big thumbs up from me, this one. I really do like how this goes together. So yeah, quite a quirky beer actually from Kyoto Brewing Company, and something pretty unique from them. So I'm curious to see what some of their other recent creations are like. We'll need to see about reviewing some of those for you quite soon. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the Irotoridori, colourful bird, whatever you want to say, a 7% oat cream IPA with a little bit of lactic acid in it and a lot of Motueka. Really nicely done stuff from Kyoto Brewing. So let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Kyoto Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until the next time, slange it, sko, cheers, kampai. Check out Kyoto Brewing social media, check out my social media, check out my friend Neva over at Japanese Craft Beer Reviews as well, and do check out the guys at Liquor Shop Asahiya. But I'll see you guys again in another review very, very soon. Slange it, skål, cheers, and kampai.